Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to another edition of BNA Sports Talk. So a couple weeks ago, before the draft, I made a couple of season previews, and so I made one about the Vikings, so that's what this video is going to be about. You'll see some few season previews coming up, or like draft recaps and things like that. I'm not going to do every single team, but I have this audio, and plus I'm a little bit busy now, so I can't really research a lot of things, so I went really into depth. So we're going to try to piece together a video and see how it works. And let's start off with the Vikings. So we're going to start off with how they did last year. So they start off pretty strong. They beat the 49ers, who were supposed to make the postseason this year. And then they tied the Green Bay Packers in a game that they shouldn't have tied. But then all of a sudden they lost to the Bills. And then they tried to rebound a little bit, had some strong wins going towards the middle of the season. And then they lost to the Bears, the Seahawks, and the Patriots. And that was pretty much the end of their season. The story of this team is they cannot win big games. They can't. And that's why they fired their offensive coordinator. I made a video, or I'm going to show a video in a couple of days. I have it recorded. I just need to edit it. It may be out by now, but I made a video saying what teams are in my Super Bowl bubble, and the Vikings were not, and the Falcons were in. Well, we're going to go why the Falcons later, but the Vikings weren't, because I said you can't have a huge hole on your team, and you have to have a history of winning, which the Vikings don't really have a history of winning. Neither do the Falcons and a couple of other teams I put on the list. But you can't have a glaring hole, and your quarterback has to be able to win big games. You have to have the X factor in the quarterback. It doesn't matter. Your quarterback doesn't have to be this all-pro, but he has to be able to win games, and you can't have him signed to $27 million a year. Now, this team, 2 years ago, why were they so successful with Case Keenum? Oh, now, there are a couple reasons why. First of all, it was the number 1 ranked defense in the league. Obviously, you're going to have a really good team when you have a number 1 ranked defense. That's why they went 13-3. Next, he had a quarterback that was able to not lose you games. He didn't win you games, but he didn't lose you games. He was a Blake Bortles. He was Eli Manning back in 2007. He wasn't going to win you games. Eli Manning did win some games back then, but he wasn't going to lose. He was going to throw the game away. Very low turnovers, things like that. But this year, you had Kirk Cousins that threw the game away a lot. You look at it, and so many times he had to play catch-up. You know, he threw an interception or something happened. And this team, he basically just had a lot of late-game yards. The team fell behind, and partially it was because of the defense. The defense struggled a little bit. They dropped from 1st to, 15th, I would say, in the beginning of the season. Then they leveled out. They were, at the end of the season, they were around where they were, what their talent suggested, around 5th in the league. They struggled a little bit in the run game, which is a main reason why they struggled. They struggled on 3rd down so many times. That ground and pound, 3rd down, that's it. They were one of the best 3rd down ranked defenses 2 years ago. I'll throw up the stats now to show you guys their ratings on Pro Football Reference. Because last year compared to this year, and there's so many glaring. It's not that bad on defense. The defense didn't get a lot worse. You don't go from 13-3 to 8-7-1 just because your defense let up a few more yards than the previous season. They never were good at turnovers, the defense, but that's the reason, and they did so well. They weren't even good at turnovers. They were actually better at turnovers last year, and the defense, it was about the same. Didn't really change much. What changed was the offense and this offensive line that absolutely got decimated. Now, I don't know specific players who they lost or gained because I don't really pay attention to the Vikings that much, but goddamn, that offensive line really made Kirk Cousins run around, scramble. They didn't make it any easier for Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, has never won a playoff game yet. He got signed this big year, never won at least Dak Prescott won a playoff game. He could win games. But the thing is, he needs to be surrounded with guys. Kirk Cousins can't lift. You got to realize if your quarterback is a truck or a trailer, Russell Wilson, he can carry his team better than what they are. Aaron Rodgers, he can carry his team better than what they are. Teams like Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to lift teams better than what they are. Before I get too sidetracked, I want to just go over their roster this year, see how they did in free agency. They kept Anthony Barr, which is a big thing. They play a 4-3, meaning they have 4 defensive linemen. This is new to me. I never really cared about 4-3-3-4. This is all new to me this year. Obviously, now I'm getting used to all of the words and stuff like that. But they have Danielle Hunter starting on their offensive line. They brought in a defensive lineman, Shamar Stephen from Seahawks. I think he should fill in pretty good. You have Linval Joseph rounding out that defensive line. Linebackers are pretty good too. Anthony Barr. You may want to add another I think linebacker on the right side. I think that's another weak position on this team. Kind of a developmental guy, some developmental pieces on defense. But the glaring place, the first pick has to be offensive line. 100%. If it's not offensive line, you're screwed. Jonah Williams hopefully falls down to you. Actually, no. Midway through that sentence, I realized, the Giants should pick up Jonah Williams. But you need the best offensive line available. There are going to be a lot of them. Dalton Reisner is a good pass blocker, apparently. Cody Ford drops to you, maybe. There's going to be a good offensive lineman that drops to you. I don't really care. There's some guys good at pass, defense, rush defense. Haven't really been paying attention to that. But I think you get more of a rush defender, because if you look at it, last year, their rush defense, I'll bring it up again, the stats, but it's horrible. Their rush defense, Dalvin Cook out of Florida State. I don't know why I say Florida State. Every single time a player's out of Florida State or Florida, I feel like I have to mention them. But, yeah, it's he got injured last year, and the team wasn't able to extend third downs. They weren't able to keep the chain moving, and running was a big part of it, I think. You need to help out Kirk Cousins a little bit. I don't think he's the answer at quarterback, but at least they signed him to a 3-year deal and wasn't that long. It wasn't like a 5-year deal with $30 million guaranteed each year. But yeah, so as far as the draft, you have only 7 picks. You don't really have a lot of picks here. You had to forfeit a lot of picks. You gave some picks to the Broncos. I think they gave a pick to the Broncos. I forget what that was about, but yeah, so first pick, offensive line. Next pick, I would say middle linebacker. Your good offensive talent is great. You have your tight end. You have your wide receivers. But the problem is they have a glaring hole in their offensive line, and I don't think they're going to be able to fix that. Like I said, the main story of this team is Kirk Cousins cannot lift this team up. They were pretty healthy last year. So their offensive talent's pretty good. You have Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, the tight end, Kyle Rudolph, pretty good. Fix up the offensive line. But looking at their defense, they're in a 4-3 right now. I think they're going to remain 4-3. They have Danielle Hunter, who is a second All-Pro. Linval Joseph. They just got Shamar Stephen from the Seahawks, and they have Everson Griffin. I think this is a strong defensive line. Then for their linebackers, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Ben Gideon. I would maybe get another linebacker in the draft, just as a developmental piece, because I think you need some more linebackers, get some more defensive backs. Then you have Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, who's a second All-Pro, Anthony Harris, and then you may need another cornerback in Trey Waynes. So this defense, you need a couple developmental pieces, but the main story for the Vikings is you pay Kirk Cousins, and you're not going to be able to bring in a lot of other free agents to help this team until Kirk Cousins is gone. Good thing they only signed him to 3 years, just as a test. As far as the 50th overall pick, I don't think you can find good value for cornerback back then. So I think you address your safety position, or maybe cornerback too. Rock Ya-Sin is still probably going to be available. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is more of a coverage safety, so maybe you could pick him and you could develop him into a cornerback. All of a sudden, this team, one of the worst offensive lines, isn't all of a sudden tighten itself up. They fired their offensive coordinator, have a new guy in, I guess, but the Vikings, I don't think they're in the Super Bowl bubble. They're in cap hell right now. And the main reason why let's look at the main reason why they went to the NFC Championship in 2017. No, it wasn't a lucky play against the Saints. Well, part of it was that. But their defense was first in the league, pretty much. First top 2 in the league. But last year, it was actually top 5 in the league. Many people, the defense started pretty rough, but they ended up being pretty good towards the end of the season. They're the ones that squared up. The defense, the main problem, if you look at it, I want to focus on a couple numbers when you go on to Pro Football Reference. So the league defense ranked in yards was 4th, points for was 9th. Previously, they were 2 and 1, respectively. They had decent turnovers last year at 16. Passing, they were really good against the pass. Didn't really have a lot of interceptions. Rushing, they kind of struggled with rushing on defense. Let's look at the 2016 season. They didn't really have a lot of turnovers either last year. But if you look at it, passing, they were great. Rushing, they were great too. But they didn't dip that bad. The main numbers I see is, look at the rushing numbers. Offense, 7th in the league in rushing. They had a cornerstone at running back. But if you look at it this year, and you look at the numbers for running backs on offense, running on offense, and then you see 30th, 27th, 25th, and all those metrics, Kirk Cousins, he threw a lot of yards, and those were kind of garbage yards towards the end of the game. And then, he didn't really throw a lot of interceptions. He was decent with interceptions. But running game, offensive line, that was the main problem. Drew Brees, he's only won one Super Bowl. For many of those years, they were 6-10, 7-9, all those years, and that's because they had a horrible offensive line. Then they solved the offensive line problem. Whoopee! Now they're a playoff team, and now then you can start adding running backs. They try to add too many skill players before they can add, decent players like that. So looking at this year, they have 5 games where they're playing in prime time. Count those 5 as losses. I don't even know who they're playing against. Count those 5 as losses. You already have 5 losses. Then you look down at the rest of their schedule, and it's not that easy either. They have to play the NFC East, which, it could be horrible. Some years it's just like, oh yeah, this is going to be the best league in the division, and then all of a sudden it's the worst. But this is a hard schedule, and this is a make or break year for Kirk Cousins. His second year on his 3-year contract, and you have your running back returning. I always forget Dalvin Cook. Yeah, there you go. I just forgot his name in a previous video. I remember now. I don't think this is the playoff team. Right now I've had to give a record prediction 7-9, but let's go through the games. You start off, and the first 4 games, those are all 4 losable games. Obviously, every game is losable, but sometimes you mark off in the calendar, that's a W. That's a definite W. But you start off against the Falcons. You start off against the Green Bay Packers, Raiders, and Bears. Those are 4 losable games. Oakland, maybe not. I don't know. It depends what they do in the draft. But then you have the Giants. It always seems like the Vikings have the Giants number no matter who's playing for the Vikings. You have a semi-easy middle. You have the Eagles, Lions, Redskins, Chiefs, Cowboys, Broncos. It's not that hard, but it's not that challenging either. They're gonna need to pick up. They're gonna need to pick up some games there, and then you end with Seattle, Lions, Chargers, Packers, Bears. Man, you get no breaks in the schedule whatsoever. It's kind of an easy center, but you don't have like a week where you could just say, okay, let's chill. And plus, your bye week is week 12, so that's really, really late in the season. So you might already be banged up. They're gonna need to win those mid-season games. They're gonna need to steal a game against the Chiefs. But they have 5 primetime games, so no matter who they're playing, I'd say they go 1-4. 1-4 off the bat, primetime games. Kirk Cousins, he hasn't proven to me that he can perform in those games. 7-9 is, I think, their projected record, but they can dip. They can go as worse, I think, 5-11. And then their ceiling, I think their ceiling is 8-8. Honestly, it's 8-8 or 8-7-1. I don't think they're going to be better than last year. I really can't see how this team is better than last year. So now I mentioned what they did with the draft. Like I mentioned before, this was recorded before the draft, so I think I was pretty right. I don't think they needed a tight end, but I think they realized with Kyle Rudolph, like there's some tension going there, so I don't mind them selecting Irv Smith Jr. The rest of their draft is kind of lukewarm for me. I don't really like the rest of their picks. They did shore up their offensive line, which is a huge hole for them, but they did lose players like Sheldon Richardson. So, yeah, I don't think the Vikings are going to be contenders for the Super Bowl next year. I don't think they're in that Super Bowl bubble. But I definitely do think that they can make some noise this year. It's just that their schedule is way too rough.